What's up, dudes? It's Molly. Hi, guys. I'm Molly Marcella. I'm a clairaudient psychic, Heyoka empath. I am channeling, so anything I say is part of your message. This is just a morning muse. I got my curling iron plugged in. Just gonna get my hair curled, but oh my God, Spirit had me write down these weird little instances from the past. And it's, do you remember this moment in time? So, do you ever wonder if, you can remember something from the past if another person remembers? Do you remember that? Do you remember when that happened? And so, keeping with the theme of entertainment industry, music, I've shared, I kind of grew up in the music scene here in the Twin Cities. And I used to work at a record store. And so Spirit had me write down some memorable moments with some musicians that I had in the past. And it would be interesting to see how far it would go if somehow you ever hear back, I remember, or I totally don't remember that. Yeah. What stays in one person's memory? Is it in the other ones? All right, so let's do it. So some interesting experiences I had in my past. So the first one, Steven Tyler and Joe Perry. So this is back in late 90s. I was working at a store called Socks Appeal. And my best friend, I talk about her all the time, her name's Michelle. I've known her since kindergarten and she lives in Hawaii. She had a job at the Marquette Hotel downtown. And downtown Minneapolis. And that was the big fancy hotel that the hoity-toities go to. And she was, I believe her title was executive concierge or something like that. So basically she delivered packages to people's doors and helped them with whatever they may need. And on a more personal basis. And Aerosmith, I believe they were on tour with Cheap Trick. I mean, come on. Yeah. And I think they were. They were staying at the hotel. And Michelle had gotten to know Steven. She said he was a really cool dude. So all of these examples are light workers. Are people who are destined light workers with their energy. And so she kind of got to chit-chatting with him, friendly, Minnesota nice, when she would deliver whatever to his room. And he ended up, the band ended up home basing it in the Twin Cities, if I remember right. And then they go out to a different Midwest show and then come back. And so they were staying there for a while. And I think that's how it went down. And so she also worked at this shelter for abused and neglected kids in the Twin Cities and in Minneapolis. And I also worked there after this. I was working at the sock store at Calhoun Square called Socks Appeal, a whole store that only sold socks. And to this day, I still have some socks in my sock drawer from that store. So Michelle hadn't worked all weekend, and then she went to go deliver something. Steven opened the door, and he said, "Hey, Michelle, where you been? I haven't seen you for the past couple days." And she said, "Well, I work at this other job." And this was around Christmas time. And she said, I work at this other job at this shelter for abused and neglected kids that are removed from the home by the state of Minnesota. And I was working there. And he said, whoa, what's that like? And she said, you know, right now it's kind of tough. A lot of those kids are worried Santa can't find them. They're ages 1 to 13. And he said, wait right here. He was peeking through the door of his hotel room. He said, wait right here. And he closed the door. And he came back. And he had 5 $100 bills. And he said, this is all the cash I have right now on me. Make sure those kids get some Christmas presents. And she said, Steven, you are so cool. I'll make sure they know they got a Christmas present from Steven Tyler. Oh, my computer just went dark. And he said, no, honey, you make sure they know they got a Christmas present from Santa. Yeah, how cool is that? And she said, thank you very much. And at that time, that was a nice Christmas present for each of those kids. Just like that. Didn't even think about it. It's all the cash I have around me right now. Here, buy him some Christmas presents. What a kind man. And then he said, Joe and I have a day off today. Can you recommend a place to go to get some holiday gifts? And she said, yeah, go to Socks Appeal at Calhoun Square. And so she hooked up a way for them to get to the mall. Now, if you're from the Twin Cities back in the 90s, you know what Calhoun Square was like. Kind of like little boutiques, the old candle store with the beeswax straws you got for $0.25, the cool shoe shop, the kitchen store, all the neat little clothes stores. So they show up. Now, Michelle calls me and she says, hey, at work, I was working, she said, keep an eye out. Steven and Joe might come out there. I said, oh, cool. And then she told me about the money and I'm like, oh my God, how cool. What a cool person. And then I hung up the phone and I talked to this owner of the store, of this, it's a franchise might mean something. The owner of this franchise, the name Pete might mean something. I said, hey, Pete, you know the band Aerosmith? And he's like, no. And I said, what? I started singing some Aerosmith songs to him. He was older. And he's like, no. I was like, well, this band, some of their members might be coming into the store later. And he's like, oh. So sure enough, an hour or two later, I hear this chick freaking out. Oh my God! Oh my God! And I look out, and coming up the escalator, those two, both of them in trench coats, they were all like scarved out, no kind of disguise whatsoever. They get to the top of the escalator to where this girl was completely freaking out. And they stopped, they shook her hand, calmed her down, and then walked straight into the store. I was like, what's up, dudes? And then my boss goes from across the store, hey, Molly, are these your friends in the band? Yeah. Yep, they're my friends in the band. I said, what's up, dudes? Welcome to Minneapolis. How you doing? And I helped them, and they bought a bunch of socks, like stacks of socks. When I was ringing them up, I said, Steven, I got to tell you, Michelle is my BFF. And she told me about the money for the shelter. That was really cool of you to do. And he said, well, she's a sweetie. And you're a sweetie too. And I said, you're a sweetie. And he said, you want a hug? And I said, yep. And nothing about it was pervy, icky, crossing the line, nothing. And he said, you want a kiss? I said, yep. And he planted a kiss right on my cheek, and I got a hug. It was a really cool interaction. And that's what certain people with their light, it's kind of like, I think I cleaned up all my cards. Kind of like the disco chicken. When it walks, it leaves a trail of stardust behind it. Not to say these people don't have bad days, but these people, they're energy workers. And while I was ringing them up, a man ran in. He's like, oh my God, I just got to shake your hands. And both of them stopped, shook hands with a smile on their face. Really cool dudes. Joe, very shy. An example of a lot of musicians have like huge dick energy on stage, just meaning they like can command the stage, but then off stage, really, really shy. Like really shy. Yeah. So that's a really cool memory. I often wonder if Steven Tyler remembers donating $500 to the shelter. And yeah. And it did get written in their records for when they get older that they received a present from Steven Tyler from Aerosmith. All right. Archers of Loaf, the band Archers of Loaf. I loved the band Archers of Loaf. I still fucking do. If you've never heard Archers of Loaf, their music fucking rocks. So this was back when they were touring for Vivi. And my friend, at the time, I had all these colorful braid extensions. These giant braids in my hair. And my friend was working at the radio station. And he said, the band is coming in to play at, I can't remember if they were playing at 7th Street or at the main stage at First Avenue. I can't remember what it was. But they're coming in to do a radio thing before the show. Do you want to come and meet them? I'm like, fuck yeah, I do. It's my band I love. And so he said, show up at the radio station at this time, whatever. And so I showed up at the radio station. I had never been there before. I showed up. They were already in the booth doing their radio bit. And so I could see them through the glass, and I was just sitting on this couch holding my VV record. And I'm like, I look like the biggest groupie ever. And then all of a sudden I went through this like, oh my God, I'm gonna make a damn fool of myself. And so I'm like, I'm just sitting here with a record looking like the biggest groupie ever. I went through some kind of autistic meltdown. So I went and I took my record and I hid it behind the couch. And then I just sat there trying to look all cool. I don't know what the fuck I was thinking. So they got done with their radio bit. They all came out of the booth. My friend's like, what's up, dudes? This is Molly. She likes your band. She's cool. And he's like, did you bring your record? And I was just like, help. So I'm really, really bad at lying. So the whole band was just like looking at me. My friend was just looking at me. Did you bring the record? I was like, yeah, and I hid it behind that couch right there. You guys, I just felt like a really big groupie, and I thought I would look too much like a groupie, and so I hid your record. I can't remember who said it, but one of them was like, no, that's okay. Eric's sister is our only groupie. So then I got up, got the record, and hung out with the dudes, and went to the show after. I wonder if they remember that. All right, the next one. Fat Mike from NoFX. Yeah, so I don't know why he was there. It must have, maybe Me First and the Gimme Gimmes means something. Partying at the Triple Rock. So he was in town at the Triple Rock for something, and it was after the bar had closed, and at the time he wanted to now, if you know anything about Fat Mike, he's kind of like an eccentric dude, and this is a wonderful example of the punk rock scene. So I used to hang out at a club called the Triple Rock here in the Twin Cities, the Rock. And that was kind of like the punk scene where a lot of punk shows would go and all that kind of stuff. And so if you don't know anything about the punk scene, you might think like, what a bunch of dicks and assholes. But it's the opposite. Like, the crustiest dudes have the biggest hearts. Like, the most gentleman type of people. And so this was a wonderful example of that. It was, for whatever reason, I was with a friend. D's nuts might mean something for some people, who ended up I'm no longer friends with. And I was upstairs at the after, like the whole club had shut down, and I was sitting at a table with a bunch of dudes. There was just a bunch of dudes in the room. And I remember going up there, and like any woman does, and if you're a dude, take note, like, this is what women do. I went up the stairs. I said, okay, there's this many dudes in this room right now, and there's the way to get out if I need to. All right, I'm upstairs. So, sitting around a table, hanging out, partying. They were closing down the club. And then we were talking about, I was talking with Mike about how my dad's friend was a professional gambler. And Mike was getting into gambling at the time. And we were talking about how my dad would get to go along with his friend and get comped all these wonderful experiences at the casino and stuff. And we were talking about riverboat gambling and all this kind of stuff. And this dude kept like dismissing me and talking over me. And it kind of felt like because I was a girl. And he kept like just trying to get Mike's attention and like, and all of a sudden Mike was like, dude, can't you see she's talking right now? Why are you being so fucking rude? And I was like, right on, man. He said, I'll talk to you, but we're talking right now. And I was like, what a cool dude. So I always wondered, now that's not really the hugest, most significant thing, but I do wonder if he remembers ever talking to some chick about riverboat gambling, about how her dad got all these perks, and how he stood up. So that's an example. He was a perfect gentleman there. And he told somebody who was being really rude to sit it down for a second. He's talking to this lady right here. And he wasn't trying to hit on me or anything like that. He was just being respectful from person to person. And that was what was so cool. So I wonder about that. Another one. Laura Jane Grace, back at the Triple Rock again. Back at that time, she was going by the name Tom. And the reason I bring that up is because I was sitting in a booth, and across from me was I can remember it was her and then two other people on her side. I don't remember who it was. And she said, "Does anyone have chapstick? I really need something on my lips." And that's when I knew. I knew. And I said, "I've got lip gloss on a wand." And she said, "That will work." And I said, "Sure." And I passed over my lip gloss on a wand, and she used it, and she gave it back. And then we talked about how my mom and dad were living in Naples, Florida. And we talked about Naples a little bit. So, once again, I wonder if Laura ever remembers the kind girl who shared her lip gloss. Next, Ted Kubler saw my boobs. It's true. Well, this is, okay, so he's a guitarist from the Hold Steady. I wonder if there's a tale of two titties. Yeah. This was before the band, before those boys got famous. And I lived in a party house in Minneapolis, right behind the Loon on Grand Avenue. And there was another house down the street that was another party house, and we'd go back and forth hanging out in the scene. And so my house, I lived with a bunch of BMX boys and then me. And so it was pretty big party house. And I see everybody carrying in a box of Primo, a case of premium beer, Primo, putting it down, and then you sit on it. That was the furniture. So we always had a bunch of parties. And just one night, so I had the here's how the layout of the house was. Now imagine a bunch of naughty good boys, heavy on the naughty, with their BMX bikes. So there was a sunroom that had 3 dudes living in there together. There was the second bedroom that had 2 brothers living in there. And then Bob lived in their closet. There was this really long closet. And another dude lived in the closet there. And then I had the master bedroom to myself. And then from my bedroom, there was a door to the bathroom. And then the bathroom also had a door to the main living room area. And so the bathroom had 2 doors. And usually during parties, I would leave my bedroom open. People could walk through or whatever. And I remember getting really, really hot. I was like, I am so hot right now. And I went in my bedroom, and I was going to change out of my sweater or sweatshirt. I can't remember what it was. But just wearing with no bra. And right as it was a total Brady Bunch moment. Right as I pull my head, imagine my head is right here. Out of the bathroom door opens Ted Kubler walking right into my room. I pop out. So a lot of people would get lost in that bathroom. And they would even say it. It was like, I got lost in the bathroom for a second. So you go into the bathroom, pee, especially dudes, turn around, and there's 2 doors right there. And it's like, what door did I come in? So this dude 100% fully expected he was walking onto the party. And as soon as my head popped out, he was like a deer in the headlights. And his mind was playing Grease Lightning from Go Grease Lightning. Yeah. Full high beams, dude. And I said, he was like in a trance. I don't know. I said, Ted, close the door. And he said, oh my God, Molly, I'm sorry. Put his head down and backed out and closed the door back into the bathroom. And he was one of those dudes too. Huge dick energy on stage, totally shy off stage. And so shy he didn't say anything about it after. So I wonder if he remembers that. And he was a total gentleman about it. Complete Brady Bunch accident moment. And his mind played grease lightning. So it all depends on how messed up he was at that party. Next, Dan Andriano back at the Triple Rock. I was standing on the side of the stage and I was they were playing a show. If you've never seen Alkaline Trio, you have to go to an Alkaline Trio show. You will feel so good after the show. They put on such a great show. They will fill your batteries up. If you don't listen to their music, you should totally check it out. So I was on the side of the stage. It was a packed show. And dancing, just rocking out. I might have been channeling, who the fuck knows? Way back then. I look, and I was doing this weird witchy point. I'd never done it before ever in my life. I didn't even realize I was doing it. And Dan was playing, and he looked at me, and he's like, I'm sure he was like, why is that chick pointing? And then I'm like, we kind of locked eyes for a second, and I was like, why am I pointing? And then I put it down. So a random weird thing. I wonder if he ever remembers the weird chick pointing at him during the show. And then after that, after the show too, that show, they did a triple header at the Triple Rock. So that band did 3 shows. Now, how long ago? This must have been 15 or 18 years ago, however long ago this is. They did 3 shows at the Triple Rock in a row. And my nephew, I had introduced this band to him, and he loved the band. He still does. He's got an Alkaline Trio tattoo on his arm. And he had just turned 21. And so I couldn't figure it out. I don't know. We went, he didn't have a ticket for the first show. And I was going with this dude, and he had a +1 on the guest list. And I told my nephew, who had just traveled in from Florida to see these shows, if you can't get a ticket for this show, I'll let you use my spot on the guest list. I've seen Alkaline Trio before, and we'll all go to the show tomorrow, because we had tickets to the second show. And we went to the club, and a man named Derek was the drummer, and he was carrying his drums or moving. Somehow he was walking in, or however it worked, and my nephew went up to him and he's like, hey man, look, I'm a super fan. Hey, look at me. And Derek said, do you have tickets? Are you seeing the show tonight? And he said, no, the show's sold out, but I have tickets tomorrow. I just thought, and that club was split in half. So if you didn't have a ticket to the show, you could still hang out in the bar side. And Derek stopped loading in what he was doing. And I remember standing in the bar side, watching him walk in with my nephew. And he yelled out, hey, to the powers that be, we have to get this kid on the guest list right now. What a cool dude. What a totally cool dude. Had a nice smile, gave my nephew a slap on the back, and went out and kept loading in. What a nice guy. And then, before the show was starting, I was on the side of the stage, and their guitar tech dude, I was like, hey man, I see there's like a set list there. After the show, if nobody's claimed it and you're just going to throw it away, can I have that set list? My nephew would like. He's having like an amazing experience already. That would put the cherry on top. And he said, oh, of course, yeah, I'll make sure you get it. What a cool dude. And then the second show we came, we're there again. I see the guitar tech dude, or tech dude, whatever they call him. And I said, what's up, man? And I said, I am also a super huge fan. If this set list isn't asked for, can I have it? And he said, of course. What a cool dude. After the show was over, he gave me the set list and some guitar picks. Bunch of light workers. Then after, I remember watching Dan walk out to the bar side. Didn't see Matt the whole time. He stayed in the green room. Watching Dan walk over, went and talked to him for a little bit, talked about Dan Andriano in the hurricane emergency room. Yeah, great album. It's Gonna Rain All Day, love the song. Dan Andriano in the emergency room, hurricane season. And I was like, how's this dude gonna rock star? It's interesting. I love people watching. He was kind of walking by himself. And there was these little girls, younger girls, fangirling out. I was like, how's he gonna rock star? Very professional. He stood with those girls, took some pictures. There was no like, I'm a pervert and I'm looking for someone to take advantage of. Nothing like that. This dude was clearly a married man. I was like, I like that. He was really professional, cool. So I always wonder if they remember that. That weird witchy point. And then Spirit wants to talk about, and this might be energy exchanges. Sometimes when light workers are around other light workers, you have an energy exchange. You actually exchange energy with each other. It might start as a little seed and take a really long time to grow. Energy might bring you back together. You might have divine purposes. You might have transmuted energy for people. So think about the musician, how powerful musician energy workers are. So a handful of people up on a stage, a whole club is packed full of people, and those people will do their performance and fill up everybody's, think of it like a video game, everybody's life source. Their heart chakras are glowing. And then everybody disperses out, gets in their car, and goes and brings that vibration home to where it like oozes out and spreads. That's what energy work is. And a handful of people can fill up the life force of a whole bunch of people just with their divine talent. That's super cool. So the first big concert I ever went to was the Moody Blues when I was a little girl. And I'll have to ask my sister because I don't know how my dad even got the tickets or how he even worked it out. My mother wasn't there. And so when I was a little girl, there was one summer, my mom was an archaeologist. And so there was one summer when my mom was in Egypt and Israel on some digs. And I think it might have been that summer. I'm not sure. It could have been before. But my mother wasn't there. It was just my dad, my sister, and myself. We went to go see the Moody Blues, and we got to go backstage. And the band was like, hey, little girl, come over here. Oh, and they said, bend down. And they used my back as a table to sign autographs on. So that's my first concert experience. I have no idea how my dad was able to get backstage with us. And the Moody Blues signed autographs on my back. All right, so there's some rock star stories. Yeah. I wonder if anybody remembers. Do you remember this moment in time? All right, dudes, there's the morning muse. Okay, we're back at the house on Grand Avenue. Matt Kronk has pulled the phone out of my room and brought it into the kitchen. He is sitting on the corner cross-legged with the white pages open. And he is crank calling somebody. This dude had the ability to keep people on the phone for an absurdly long amount of time. Now, walking around him and those two people sitting cross-legged in front of a white pages, the white pages was the playground, going to get a beer out of the fridge. Yeah, what's the sign on the fridge say? It says this. Because the weekend before, we were all partying, and that kind of older than us chick upstairs that was a total bitch. We're all having a party. All of a sudden, we hear bang, bang, bang. Oh my God, she's getting it on. Her bed is like bang. The whole party downstairs like, ah! A bunch of naughty good boys and girls. Somebody gets the bright idea. Oh my God, we just hear boom, boom, boom. Somebody gets a broom, bangs it on the ceiling to see what they'll do. There's like a whole party of people downstairs. It stops. And then like 10 seconds later, it starts again. We all like fall on the floor laughing. The next day, I get up to go to work. And I walk out. There was like this little alcove where the top met the outside before the big door. What is that taped to our door? Listen here, you little shitheads. I will have sex with whoever I want, whenever I want, as loud as I fucking want. So stop banging on my floor. This is solid gold. I turn back in, duct tape it to the fridge in our house, so everybody who gets a beer now reads them. Listen here, you little shitheads. So many stories from that house.